Okay, we are live. Neil, you can start the presentation.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope you are all well and safe in the times of COVID-19. But today I'm going to discuss how to write a stellar MBA resume and essays. My name is Neil Chong. I'm with Veritas Prep. I'm an MBA admissions consultant, and I attended USC Marshall School of Business. So, first off, what I want to mention to you about Veritas Prep is we have a special offer where everybody who's on this webinar is eligible for a free one-on-one profile evaluation, a phone call with a member of the Veritas team. There's the website. All you need to do is punch that in, enter your information, and we could go ahead and schedule it and be happy to set that up for you. All right, here's our agenda. I'm going to briefly talk about myself, then we'll get into the presentation about the MBA resume, MBA essays, give you a reminder on the free offer, and then we'll do some question and answers, and then follow up. So a little bit about me. Again, I attend at USC Marshall School of Business. I concentrated in finance and marketing, and I've actually been with Veritas Prep doing MBA admissions consulting for more than 10 years. And really, it kind of runs the gamut. I work with a wide variety of clients on different programs, typically within the top 20, top 25. But we also work with individuals who think they need help on any program. So we don't just limit ourselves to those top 25 programs necessarily. Uh, Also, in terms of applicants' backgrounds, again, it's a wide variety of backgrounds and goals, and really with the intent of trying to help you navigate through the waters of MBA admissions and the whole application process and what's involved with that, whether it's essay evaluation, school evaluation, mock interviews. We have different packages, whether it's a hourly package. We also have school specialists for most of the top 25 programs, so you could get individualized information as it pertains to that school, that program, because we have individuals who either worked at that program or actually attended the program. All right, so let's get into this. The MBA resume. So I read a study, and it came out from GMAC, the Graduate Management Admissions Council. It was study came out in 2015, and curiously enough, the admissions committee members who were polled stated that the MBA resume was actually one of the probably the most important, or if you look at the scale, one of the more important uh, things to look at in terms of the overall application process. So I guess with that being said, as you construct your MBA resume, as you go through that process, really give it some time and thought, because as with all aspects of the application, it is actually very important. So, what is an MBA resume? It's a high level, quick hit. It really is the ultimate marketing tool about yourself. Some tips about how you want to construct it. I think about it being succinct, brief, to the point, but informative as well, with enough detail, but not overburdening not only the space but the reader with too much information. So less is probably better than more. Just making sure that you hit your key points and you provide enough detail so that the audience, who is really the admissions committee, really could get they take a look at the bullet points and they really get a true understanding of what you are all about. So what do you want to do? You want to showcase career progression. So typically at the top, you'll have your career, applicants who are advised. A lot of times I'll see it with maybe like a background or an overview, initial statement, or like that. You don't necessarily need to do that. And then sometimes I'll see the education at the top. Typically, I would put your career experience at the top, and then education after that. So what you want to demonstrate really is you have your current job at the top, and then your the previous jobs below that. But as you migrate up your resume with the bullet point with the different jobs, you really kind of want to demonstrate that career progression, and that you have some upward mobility in terms of what you've done in your jobs, in your roles, and in your career to date. Some key things to keep in mind, uh, and this is important, not only for your MBA resume, but your overall resume, are leadership, taking the initiative, people management, teamwork skills. If you could demonstrate any of that on your resume, that is good and goes a long way towards really solidifying a really good representation of yourself. International and community involvement, if you have any of that, would also be good to mention, especially from an MBA perspective, as you apply to the different programs. And you want to demonstrate responsibilities and achievement and successes. So, again, as you've been in a role, you kind of want to show how you've stood out from your peers, others within the organization, to really showcase and highlight the fact that you're an outstanding performer, and you're going to carry that through once you're in an MBA program. So how do you do that? Quantifying with large, impressive numbers is good, but again, always be truthful in your representation of the numbers. But anything that represents scale is always good. And then as you think about things, what makes you different? How are you unique? What are some differentiating characteristics, roles, responsibilities of yourself to really distinguish and separate you from others? So you want to encapsulate the professional story told in your essays. You really kind of want to have your resume kind of be a lead up to the themes that you want to portray as you craft your essays. And along with that, always representation of you. Double check your formatting, alignment, text font size, verb tenses, spelling, be consistent in things. So in other words, don't be sloppy. So always just take a look at that, do a final check, ask others to take a look at it for their opinions as well if they see anything. And typically, unless somebody has maybe 10 years or more work experience, you should be able to keep it to a one-page resume. Because again, you think of the thousands of resumes and essays and all of that the admissions committee looks at. You really want to keep it brief and to the point, and really, if you could get it to one page, that really would be ideal. All right, moving on. So here are 10 keys to a great resume. Use an intuitive format. Typically, I like to see you have the overview statement for each job or position, followed by specific accomplishments. Again, quantifying if possible. Keep your resume statements concise, as I mentioned previously. Use numbers to explicitly show results and impact. And along with that, I also like to see time frames. So if you worked on a project and you saved your corporation 20% as a result of you heading or leading that project. All right, you saved 20%. What time frame did that represent? Was it 6 months, January 2019 through June 2019? Really kind of represent the true timeline, so I get a sense of how long and how long that really took and what was involved there. Utilize a variety of descriptive action words. So keep that in mind as you construct the bullet points for each of your actions or tasks on your resume. Keeping to the situation, action, results framework, if applicable, on your resume is good. And then again, really kind of emphasize the actions and the results, as I mentioned previously. Avoid technical jargon. Just speak in layman terms so that whoever's reading it, if I'm not in that industry, I get a sense, I get a feel, I understand exactly what you're talking about, what you're speaking to. Because again, the admissions committee will not know everything about every single industry and job. Include your greatest accomplishment. So take a step back, document, make a note of, think about all the different accomplishments you've achieved. Again, the time frame, what that represented, and make sure that you include that. Progression in your role responsibility, as I said, should be clear as the reader moves from the bottom of the resume to the top. So I really want to see what you've done, and I kind of want to make sense of, okay, you had this job, now you took this other job. Why did you do it? Does it make sense from a career perspective? And then use the white space to prevent the resume from being overcrowded. So if you have room, include proper white space breaks so it's easy to read, because again, admissions committee, they review a lot of resumes and essays and all that. And then the resume should reflect the messages that you want to send to the admissions committee. So I can't overstate this enough, whether it's the resume, whether it's your essays. Don't just put something in there where you think, oh, I think the admissions committee, I think they want to hear this. But if you include it, maybe it doesn't, maybe it seems a little bit forced or contrived or not truly genuine. Kind of step aside from that and really think about what is a true message, what really conveys your theme, your message that you want to get across to the admissions committee. All right, let's get into MBA essays. So some key points that we want to discuss here. And this one I really kind of want to emphasize. Planning, creating timelines, monitoring your deadlines. So as you research and evaluate the programs that you want to apply to, you think about your schools, you set up your online profile with the program, and then you look at the deadlines and you pull down the essay prompts and all that. Really kind of timeline that out, plan it out, and figure out when they're all due, and then typically when you want to submit them, and then allow enough time so that you could really construct an essay that you're going to be happy about. So monitor all that, keep track of deadlines, and then as you go through this process, jot down notes, put it on your phone, write it down, put it on your laptop, tablet, whatever. Just keep notes so that as you start building your essays, you'll have that information and you'll kind of have a sense and idea of where you want to take your essays. This next point is really important because we really don't do this too often. And I know that when I was going through the MBA application process, I really had not done much self-reflection, but you really kind of have to set aside, think about yourself, think about what's important to you, think about your career, the schools, and all of that, and what's important to you, and take the time to do that because, as I mentioned, we don't really do a whole lot of that, but doing that self-reflection is a highly important process of the entire MBA application process and not just the essays themselves. Tell your original and unique story. So how are you different? What makes you special? What things have you done? Because you're the only one who knows your story. You're the only one who is, who knows yourself best. So as you self-reflect, think about things that make you different, special, where you've really stood out, some of the achievements that you've um, taken, some of the accomplishments and things like that. Because again, that is how you differentiate yourself, because it is you, it's your story, and that's how you try and separate yourself from others. So as you think about your essays, um, just don't construct the essay like a bullet point and just telling facts and details and all that. Think about it from a storytelling perspective. Make it interesting and enjoyable. Because again, if I'm on the admissions committee, how many thousands of essays have I read? A lot of them. So as I come across yours, if it's interesting and enjoyable, if I hear about your personal story, if I hear about some childhood anecdotes, if I hear about a quote that is special to you and only relevant and related to you, then I'm going to probably enjoy reading that story as opposed to other ones. So along with that, be specific, avoid technical jargon, things like that. So, an example of a personal story. So, I was working with somebody who wanted to work for Disney, and they want to go into marketing. So, why did they do that? Because as a child, they had pretty much grown up on all of the various Disney movies. They enjoyed them, but at the same time, they were pursuing an MBA because they were kind of a job changer. They wanted to get into marketing. So that's a really good story about their childhood, how they enjoyed that. They could tie that story together with some of the things they've done in their previous position from a marketing perspective, and then kind of wrap it up in terms of, well, what I'd really like to do is get into work for a company like Disney in entertainment and work in marketing. So that's kind of how they tied it all together. You want to balance the professional and personal details. And along with that, if it's kind of like a two-part essay, you don't want to just concentrate on one area of the question. You kind of want to have a balance between those two. So balance between the components of the essay prompt or question, and then a balance between, if the essay question warrants it, a balance between professional and personal details if applicable. Uh, Leadership, and this is similar to the resume, but I kind of want you to keep all these things in mind, because these components or aspects of yourself are really important from an MBA application as a whole. So leadership, taking initiative, if you've managed people, that's very important. That shows a lot. Teamwork, international experience, whether it's on the job or personal. Preferably on the job is great, but personal is good as well, because it represents diversity and those who are willing to get along with other cultures and able to work in those environments and things like that. Community involvement, especially if you've taken on a leadership role, if you've been a board member, if you've created a nonprofit, if you've done anything where you really represent leadership, I think that's really a differentiator. Demonstrating analytical and problem solving capabilities, that is always good. And again, having clear specific goals as you self-reflect is very important. So if I'm in the admissions committee, I want to think that you've thought about yourself, you've self-reflected, you really know where you want to go. Even though we know that when you're in the MBA program, you may deviate from the path you initially thought you were going to go into. But for the purposes of the MBA application, and your essays and when you do your interviews and all that, make sure that you have clear, relevant, achievable, specific goals and kind of tie that back with your experience, how that particular school's MBA program will help you, and ultimately what your short-term and long-term careers are. The last bullet point on this slide is answer the prompt. So a lot of times I'll see applicants want to deviate, stray from the path, not necessarily answer the question or provide additional details. Always keep on going back to the essay prompt and make sure that you're staying on point with getting your message across so that it answers the question. So that's the number one rule in terms of essays is, what's the question? Did I answer it? So always be mindful of that. All right, so what do we want with you to do? Be yourself, be real, be genuine, be passionate, be enthusiastic, because that'll come across in your essays. That'll come across when you do your interviews. So think about it from that perspective. Mind the details. Check the text font or the type, the size, verb tenses, spelling, consistency. Respect the word limit. So I see this a lot of times. People will start writing the essays and they've never really written about themselves, and suppose it's a 500-word essay, and then they'll give me the initial draft and it will be 750 words. That's fine. Just write as much as you want. We could cut it down. That's no problem. But the ultimate goal is really kind of getting down to that word limit of 500 words, if it's 500 words, so that you're really kind of following the instructions as stated. I think that's important. If it doesn't fit or make sense, then exclude. So you're probably going to go through several versions or drafts of your essays, which is entirely fine. Just make sure you avoid gratuitous information. The way I think about it is, are your words, your sentences, your paragraphs adding value? Are they keeping to the theme of the essay? Are they answering the question? Or is it something that you put in there because either you want to put it in there or you thought the admissions committee wanted to hear that? So again, think back to the question, make it concise, and then avoid excess information that really doesn't add anything to your essay. Actions speak louder than words. So action is important. Back up every statement with an example. So if I see an essay that just says, oh, I'm a strong leader, I've been a great team player at my job, well, anybody could say that. That doesn't tell me much if I'm reading it. So if you could provide a real life example to back that up, then you really kind of need to do so, because those are just empty words, and I don't really get much out of that without seeing the detail and an example. Optional essays really are addressed as it pertains to a lower GPA, a lower GMAT, a gap in employment, or suppose you don't want to go to your direct manager for a letter of recommendation because you feel that it's going to potentially compromise your job, your role at that company in the future, moving forward. So then you decided not to use that individual. That's fine. Just include that information in the optional essay. And again, just tell the facts, be straightforward, be brief, and then get to the point, and they'll understand that. And then again, ask others to proofread, offer feedback, and always getting another set of eyes to look at things, which you could hopefully maybe if they catch something, then you could adjust accordingly. All right, so I'm going to discuss one type of an example of an essay so you get a feel for how to kind of answer it. So a lot of times you'll see a future goal school fit essay. So really, it's really kind of the way they kind of really state it is, what are your short-term, long-term goals? Why do you want to attend our school, our program? Why now? Things like that. But a lot of times you'll see the same essay prompts from the different programs. But this is kind of a popular one. So how do you address it? You think about your professional background, and these are really the components of that question. Professional background, short-term, long-term goals, why an MBA, why now, why our school, how will you contribute, and then the closing paragraph. So if that's the question, I'd think about short-term goals. I would limit it to one role and not multiple options. At most, I've seen people do two, but if you could really be specific, that's great. If you have three or more, that kind of tells me that you haven't really done that much research. So you really kind of, again, have to self-reflect and think about what you want to do as a short-term goal post MBA, and really think about companies, jobs, industries, and do that type of thing. So be specific with the industry. Even look for specific jobs, whether it's on Indeed.com and MBA type jobs that you could find and things like that, so that you can get a sense of what these companies are looking for and how you could kind of get there. So think about that. Be specific with that, and then if you could state the company name, that would be great. And then if it pertains to a specific geographic location, that would be good as well. And then put some reasoning behind the why of all of that. Your long-term goal, really the same details as the short-term goal, but then you add in how did that short-term job, how did that role kind of prepare you to segue to really what you want to do from a long-term perspective. Why an MBA? Why now? Again, being as specific as possible, providing those details on how an MBA will help you advance in your career. What are the specific skills that you would need? Do they link to your goals? Why is the timing good for you right now, depending on where you are in your career? And then again, do not just state, I feel the timing is right for an MBA. Provide some specific details, because that's just a general comment that really doesn't add much to your essay. Why our school? So this is very important. Researching the programs is one of the more important things that you could do. So understanding the school from a culture perspective, their mission, their teaching approach or other approaches, any special programs they have, whether it's international trips or consulting projects, or they have a unique real estate program, anything like that. Their location, sometimes that could be unique to them. The courses, professors, clubs, looking at the student profiles, alums, and then the employers who hire graduates from that school is important. So really kind of thinking about that and how to demonstrate fit. How will you contribute? So what I think about this is, yeah, it's great that you're talking about yourself and how the school is going to help you, but how can you give back to the school in the classroom? It's okay. Well, if you have really good quantitative skills or advanced Excel skills or something like that, or you're really good, you've worked on a lot of consulting projects and you could really bring some of those insights to the team. Things like that, where it kind of differentiates yourself from others. Kind of think about in the classroom, what can you offer? Extracurriculars, I think about a couple things. I think about the different clubs. If you want to be a member of the club, do you want to be a board member? Do you want to be the president, the vice president? Do you really want to take an active leadership role? And then as an alum, how could you potentially give back? Well, if you start your own company, maybe in the future you might want to hire some MBA interns, or if you work in a particular industry, say maybe it's a venture capital or something, maybe you want to go back and offer some being able to appear as a guest speaker, or for different clubs in terms of their speaker series, or something like that, where you could really give back in terms of providing advice, insights, current students, and things like that. So the key takeaway here is, don't just think about how the school can help you. Think about how you can give back to the overall community, and how you best fit in. So all of that really comes with research. And how do you research? My recommendation is, if that all possible, go to the school in person, sit in on classes, meet up with an ambassador. A lot of the schools will have school ambassadors. When I was at USC Marshall, I was an MBA ambassador, so they could provide some advice, some insights, and then go to the formal sessions where they discuss the MBA program, meet admissions committee members, and then outside of that, participate in any activities as you go to the website. A lot of them will set up local events where you can meet admissions, meet alums, current students in your cities, and things like that. And then also, if you can, attend the overall MBA forums, because that can not only give you insight in terms of what schools you might want to apply to, but also specifically provide you some information, and you can make some contacts from the different schools that you really think that you will be applying to. The closing paragraph. So throughout your essay, throughout even your interview itself, always be positive. Never say anything negatively about a previous employer, an individual, anything. Just always keep it positive. And then end the essay on a positive note. Demonstrate your passion for that program, and how an MBA from that school will really help you based on, really what your career objectives are and what you're seeking. All right, so again, to reiterate, Veritas Prep, we do MBA admissions consulting, and we also offer GMAT preparation. But I'm part of MBA admissions consulting, and again, if you're seeking, whether it's hourly consulting, whether you just need help on your resume, whether you just need help on your essays, whether you need help with a mock interview, you could do that. And then we also have school packages where it's comprehensive, where you're going to have a head consultant, and then you'll also have individual school specialists from the top 25 programs who can assist you from that perspective. So that's how that works. All right. Does anybody have any questions for me? And then you could submit the questions via chat. Okay, let me go back to the presentation then. All right, so as a follow-up, here's my email address. You could email me at any time with questions. and Chong at veritasprep.com, and there's my information. And then with that, we will end the webinar. So again, any questions, feel free to email me at any time, but hopefully you all stay safe and well. And it's been a pleasure conducting this webinar for you.
Hi,
Thank you.
hi, Neil. Can you hear me?
All right.
So we have a few questions in the chat box.
Okay.
If you
Okay.
could, if you could minimize your, if you could stop your screen share, you will see those questions. I already have, yeah. So do you see the first question on your screen?
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. Got it. Okay. Thank you. Okay. There we go. How to write an optional essay for a low GMAT GRE score. What kind of reasons could be accepted? Okay. So typically for the low scores, a lot of it times it's maybe it's a quantitative thing. It's it's really you if that's the best you could do. Sometimes people will say I'm going to retake the GMAT or GRE. They'll state that, but a lot of times it's thinking about the other spectrum of things. Okay, how can I offset a lower GMAT? Do I have a high GPA? I want to emphasize some of that stuff. Do I have really good, robust work experience from a quantitative perspective that really demonstrates that on the job, I'm really capable, I perform well, I've done well with a high GPA. It's just, a lot of people are not great standardized exam takers. And that's how it goes. So it's really about kind of offsetting some of that. And then sometimes people will take uh, an MBA type of class from sometimes it's called maybe MBA for math is one such course. I know that Berkeley Extension offers some coursework where if you kind of demonstrate achievement with that and getting an A in that course, hopefully it will offset the negative impact of a low GMAT. So if it's a low GMAT, to summarize with low quant scores, then you demonstrate on the job. I've done a lot of quant related work. I'm very analytical. You really play that up. I'm taking MBA math, the extension course. I achieved an A in that. And then potentially maybe you're even retaking the GMAT GRE. So that's kind of, you think about what are some of my weaknesses, but really play to my strengths and how can I really highlight those? Okay. Do the essay questions have to follow the general structure of an essay, or can it be in the form as paragraphs as long as it answers the question? So, yeah, I mean, as long as you answer the question, I don't have any problem in terms of structure wise. But the main thing, as I stated earlier, is just make sure you think about the question. How do you address it? How do you answer it? How do you really portray yourself in the best light? And if you could do that, that is the main point. So I don't think you necessarily need to follow the structure. If it makes sense to follow the general structure, then sure. If you feel that it's better in terms of deviating from that path, then that's fine. So the way I've seen essays are, there's the questions, and then people just put them in formats, and they either indent after one main point is made on that paragraph, or they include the extra white space. But it's really kind of just organizing your thoughts so that you really answer and address the question. Is this PowerPoint accessible? Sure. So I could, you all have my email address. Um, so with that, you could just email me, and I'll be happy to email you directly and share that with you. Okay, so I think that it was the final questions. Any other questions out there? Okay, here we go. Let's see. If I have a startup in college, should I include it? Yes, definitely. So, um, it wasn't like it was 20 years ago, I'd imagine, probably not even 10 years ago. So, startups in college really kind of demonstrate a couple things, or several things. Taking leadership, um, taking initiative, um, really multitasking because you're going to school and you're doing your startup. And if you've demonstrated success, again, show percentages, revenue, time frame, all of that. But most definitely, I would include the startup in college because only you, and I don't know if there's others, but that really kind of as I mentioned, really kind of differentiates yourself from other applicants, which is really what we're trying to accomplish. How do we make yourself separate yourself, distinguish yourself from others so that you really stand out, and the admissions committee, when they read your essay, when they look at all the other components of your application package, they say, yes, this person is an ideal fit. He, she would fit in well with our program, and let's admit him or her. Any more questions out there? All right. So with that, again, feel free to email me if you like the presentation, and then feel free to email me if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you all, and have a nice and safe day.